Hi and welcome to this DCP web tutorial. In today's tutorial, I'm going to give you a quick introduction to array formulas and functions in LibreOffice Calc. So this will be part one, and we're going to do some more parts to this because I don't want this tutorial to be too long. So the first thing we'll do is go ahead and open up LibreOffice Calc. So we've got a blank spreadsheet. I'll put a link in the YouTube description if you don't have this software. It's like Excel, so I'll show you how to download and install this in a link in the YouTube description. But for now, I'm going to go to File, Save As. I just want to save this, and I'm going to overwrite this document I have here. So just give your file a sensible name, and we'll click Save, and we've got a blank document. So the first thing you need to know is we're going to be looking at array formulas first. And with array formulas, there's a certain set of keys that we have to press to make array formulas work and function correctly. So if I type in here, array formulas, and then you must use Shift plus the control key and enter key. So that may look really strange, right? I'm going to explain in a moment. So if we look at our keyboard, all I'm saying is when we use these array functions, we have to hold down the control and shift key on the keyboard down here at the bottom left, hold them down together, and then hit this enter key. So hold down the shift, control, and hit the enter key. Now another little note for you. Notes. You need to select the cells before using Shift plus control and enter. So this will make sense in a moment, right? So let's take a good example. So let's just type in some random numbers here. We'll do 100, 200, 300, and let's just do something like 50, I don't know, 80, maybe 90, right? Now if I said to you, let's calculate 20% of all of these different values. So I want 20% of 100, 20% of 200, 300, 50, 90, and 80 and 90. So I want 20% of each one of these values. There's a few different ways we can do this, right? So let me show you one example, and then I'll show you how arrays are quite powerful and how we could do this calculation very quickly. So if if you didn't know spreadsheets too well, you'd probably do equals, and then you click on this cell here. So this cell here will equal A4, which is 100, and then we want to multiply that by 0.2, which will give us 20% of the 100, which is 20. And then we could drag down using series filling, and we'll get the 20% values of these three here. Then we could go over to this cell and say equals 50 times by 0.2, and then we could series fill here. And if I just highlight these, if I highlight these ones here, let's just select these three and these three, we'll make them yellow, and these ones here we'll make them green. So what have we got here? We've got 100, 200, and 300, and 20% of 100 equals 20, 20% of 200 equals 40, and 20% of 300 equals 60, and 20% of 50 is 10, 80 is 16, and 90 is 18. So you could see we had to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 calculations in total in order to work that out. But if we delete this data, let's get rid of this. We'll remove this data. And this time we'll use an array function or formula to calculate all of this just in one calculation. So we could do equals and then highlight all of this data, highlight it with our mouse. So we drag and highlight or select all of these here, and you'll see that it's selecting A4 to B6. So this is A4 here, and then this one down here is B6. So I selected this whole block. Let me zoom in a little bit. Selecting all of this data here, and then we can just simply do multiply by 0.2, and then remember Shift Control Enter. So I'll hold down the Shift and Control key and hit the Enter key, and there you go. So we wrote one array formula that did all of that calculations for us in one simple step. That's quite powerful, right? Instead of writing all of that stuff we did before, we just did one array function that calculated all of this for us in just one simple formula, array formula, right? Now, if you try to edit this array formula, so if I double click on the number 20 and try and edit, it's going to say you cannot change only part of an array. So if you want to edit this array, you have to select it all, select all of these, and then come up to here and click, and then you can access the array and you can change it. So let's say if we wanted to work out 40%, or let's say if we want to add 20% to this value. So if we wanted to add 20% to 100, it would be, this cell would equal 120. So if we do times 1.2 and hit enter, actually what we need to do, so I'm making a mistake here, right? So we select the array, we'll click up here and we do times 1.2, and then we hold down shift control and enter, and then so shift control, then hit the enter key. Now we're adding 20% to these values. So 100 plus 20%, 20% of 100 is 20, 100 plus 20 equals 120, 200 plus the 40, which is the 20% value, and so forth. So hopefully that makes sense. So array formulas can be really, really powerful. Now let's move down and let's have a look at another function. So we're going to look at the sum product array function. And this is the first example. Let's try and let's call this example 1, and let's think of maybe doing multiplication. Let's spell that correctly. Multiplication, and we want to multiply, let's say, some values called x and y. So let's have a look at this. Now let's make a little note here. So using control plus shift and enter key, right, is not required for sum product array function. So in this example, we don't need to use the control shift and the enter key. We don't need that. So let's make these bold, right? So let's put some sample data in here. Let's do 1, 2, 3. Let's make this really easy to understand. 4, 5, and 6. Now, let's say, for example, we wanted to add 1 and 4, 2 and 5, 3 and 6, and then add the grand totals together. Yeah. So let's do one example over here first. So we'll click on this cell here, and we'll say, let's say we want to multiply them, right? We do multiplication, right? So we do equals 1, this cell here, A10, multiplied by this cell here, B10, and that equals 4. So 1 times 4 equals 4. That's obvious, right? Then we can drag down and we can get a grand total of each one of these rows. 10, 4, 10, and 18. 3 times 6 is 18, 2 times 5 is 10. That's correct. And we can auto sum this to give us a grand total, right? So we'll click here, drag up, make sure this blank cell is selected here, and then we can click the sum tool here, and that will give us a grand total of 32. So we had to write 1, 2, 3, 4 different calculations to get to that 32. And now we can write one function, one sum function, product sum function, to get that grand total. So what we'll do is we'll type in here let's do equals sum product, and it will hit the enter key, and then it's going to ask us for some information, right? Let's do that again. Equals sum product, enter, and we'll highlight these ones here, A1 to A12, and then we'll do a comma, and then we'll do these ones here, and we'll hit the enter key. We don't need to do Control Shift Enter, just the enter key, and we'll get the same result, 32. So let's have a look at that a bit more carefully. So sum product A10 to A12, yeah, these ones here, and what it's doing is looking at these values, and it's going to multiply them on the array against the B12, B10 to B12. So that's all the function is doing, the sum product function. So we could easily calculate that same value. So these two here are pretty much the same, right? 32, they are exactly the same, 32 and 32. We used one sum product array function here rather than the 1, 2, 3, 4 calculations we did here. So I hope that makes sense. That's how we use the sum product array function to do this multiplication. So let's move down a little bit, and we'll copy these two rows here and paste them down. Let's save a bit of time. And this time in example 2, we would do subtraction. So let's look at a subtraction. So we did multiplication, let's look at subtraction, and we do like x minus y, right? So some value minus some other value. So let's put some values in here. Let's use the same values, right? 1, 2, 3, and then 4, 5, 6. And let's add these up together first, right? So what we'll do is we'll highlight these. Let's highlight all of these here, and we'll do the sum function. And we've got 6 and 5, and we want to minus 15 from 6. So we do equals this cell minus this cell equals 9. So all of these added together plus all of these added together and minusing both those values gives us a grand total of 9, right? So let's use the sum product function to do that same calculation with one simple calculation. This is quite simple, right? So we can do equals sum product, hit the enter key, and we will select these. So B17 to B19 minus these values, and then just hit the enter key. 9. Here it is. So all we're doing is, if we look at the function, we're saying give me all of these values. So B17 to B19, this is column B, and this is B17 to B19 equals 15. So do that calculation first, then do this calculation A17 to A19, give me the total value, and then minus them, minus 1 from the other, and we get the result 9. Now the nice thing about these functions is if we were to change any values anywhere, so if we change this to 1000 and hit enter, the array function would do the calculation for us here as well. So if we change this to 20, we'll get the calculation here as well, and if we change this one to 20, it will automatically calculate. This is a high value. This is why it's showing minus 10, right? So we set that back to 1 and we set this to 20, then we're going to get 25. 31 minus 6 is 25, right? But we can use that sum product array function to do that for us. So let's maybe take a look at a final example, maybe something that's like a real world example, let's say, yeah? So let's say we've got a month here, and we've got some costs in our business, and we have got some revenue, right? Revenue. So we'll make these bold, and we'll type in January here, right? And then we do the series filling, so we'll click here, January, February, March, April, May, all the way down to December. So we've got 12 months here. And next to these, we're going to highlight these cells here. We'll right click, format cells, and we'll turn them into a currency value. So these are our costs. So let's just say we're calculating costs. How much have we spent each month in grand total? So that could be gas, electric, telephone, staff wages, fuel costs, internet, whatever it is, telephone, everything together in one value. So what is our cost for each month? So let's just say we're spending 2,800 here and here all the way down, and then let's say in July our costs go up a little bit, right? They go up, so I'm just cutting and pasting these down. And then November our costs go down towards the end of the year. Okay, now revenues, how much did we generate? How much money did we make? Hopefully we're making more than we're spending, right? So we'll do 6,000 here. We've made 6,000 on each of these months. And then in here we can see our costs went up, but our revenue went up as well. And let's say our costs went down, but our revenue went down with that as well a little bit here in these months, right? So if we wanted to work out our profits, so this is going to be our profit column, profit here. We need to deduct this from this to give us our profit. How much did we actually make? So if we did equals this minus this value, that would give us our profit. And we can use the series filling here to give us all of our profits. And then we can click down here and we can click the sum function and give us all of our total profits. And we can click here and drag all the way up and do sum, and this is our total revenue, and then this one here will be our total cost. Let's do a sum here. So we've got total costs, that's how much we spent, this is how much the business generated, and these two values, 75,200 minus 35,600, gives us our total profit. So we can use array functions to work out our total profit as well. Now, to do that, what do we need to do? If we typed in here, let's type it in here, profit, and we use an array function to work that out, rather than having to do all of these 12 calculations, yeah, and then this grand calculations, that's 13 calculations. We could do one calculation to work out all of this. So we could do, let's have a think here, we could do, let's do equals sum product, enter, select all of the revenue. So we've got a grand total of our revenue now in this array, minus all of our costs. So we've got a grand total of all of our costs now, and we just hit the enter key. 39,600. 39,600. Let's just make this format currency. So in this one array function, we saved ourselves time of calculating each one of these and then getting the grand total. Alright, so that was 12 calculations, 13 in total, where we can get that same calculation just using one array function. So that's quite cool. So what if we wanted to work out the average profit across the 12 months? So we know what our grand total profit is here. So we could do another calculation under here manually. We could say equals this value, and there's 12 months in the year. So we could do equals this value divided by 12. And that will give us our average profit per month. This will be our average profit. That will be the average profit per month, right? There's another way we could calculate that. We could do equals this value minus this value in fact what we wouldn't do it that way. What we would do, we'd have to do equals this value divided by 12, and then we'll do equals this value divided by 12, and then in theory if we did this equals this value minus this value gives us the same figure, right? Now we're calculating the average of this column and this column separately, and then doing this minus this equals the same value. This is also our average profit per month. So that's two ways of doing it, and there's actually a few other ways to do it as well, to be fair. We could do equals average and then select all of these and hit enter, and we'll get the same result. We're using the average function now, yeah? So there's three different ways to calculate the average profit. I'm showing you three different examples. But we have one more as well, and that is to use, let's type in here average. So saving us all that headache, we could use an array function to do this as well, yeah? But in this time, this example, what we want to do, we use the average function. So we do equals average and hit enter, and we're going to use an array in here. So what we'll do is average revenue, and then we hit minus cost, and then we're going to do Control Shift and enter, and then we can right click format cells and do currency, and we've got 3,300, which is exactly the same value here, but we've done it in one calculation. So we save ourselves a lot of time using array functions. It can be a little bit hard to understand, but the more you practice them and the more you understand how they function properly, then the better understanding you're going to have of how they actually work. But that's very powerful. We don't actually need any of this now, right? We can delete all of this, or in fact, if we were to change any of these values, so let's say we change this cost, if we increase the cost to 3,000, hit enter, all of our calculations on this section would update. You can see they've updated here and here also. But we don't need any of this. We could get rid of all of this profit, delete it, delete all of this stuff, and we could still retain our profit calculation and our average calculation all within two separate arrays here. But we didn't have to calculate all of these 12 here, the 13th one here to get this grand total, and then the 14th calculation here to give us the average. We saved ourselves all of that time just by writing these two simple array functions. Okay, I think that's going to be enough for this first part. Have an experiment, play around with these product sum functions, the sum function, sum product function, and also the array formulas, and see how you could use this within your business or your calculation. You can even use it on a personal level, right? These costs could have been separated out. They don't have to be business related. It could be your personal bills, like your gas, your electric, and so forth. And you can calculate the average cost of how much you're spending on your gas, electric, and water, for example. Or you can relate this to your business. So it's entirely your choice. So experiment with these, and then we'll close this down. Let's save this. We'll close this down, and I will be doing some more LibreOffice Calc array and function formula tutorials in the near future. This is part 1, and I look forward to seeing you in the next DCP web tutorial.